everyone, and welcome to Sunup. I'm Lyndall Stout. Wheat harvest is underway across Oklahoma and even winding down in some areas. With that in mind, we want to return to Lahoma and our recent visit with OSU wheat breeder Brett Carver to learn about new varieties that are on the horizon. We're here now with Brett Carver, OSU's wheat breeder, to talk about some new possible wheat varieties that are in development. And Brett, it's always great to catch up with you at Lahoma. Let's kind of start with this first variety here and some of the things that you've been observing and working on.
All right, so yes, it's a long process, of course, to get here, about 10 to 12 years before we actually see the line on display for the public to see at our field tours. And the first one I want to talk about is this 12-7-16 with a lot of numbers behind it, which just means that we spend a lot of time trying to purify and clean it up so that if we do co-commercial with it, it's ready to go. But the 12-7-16 has been an interesting line for us because it has given us extremely good reach. And you know, reach is important because, you know, we want OSU wheat varieties to have a broad impact. So it's a good, what I call a two-horse variety. It's a racehorse and a workhorse all in one. That racehorse potential gives it high yield potential. The workhorse, it can get through some tough times like this year.
Okay. So
this is one that's kind of at the top, if there was one at the top. But there's another one that we have to decide, all right, let's make sure now, is the 12-7-16 better or is the 13-209 better? The 13-209 has completely different genetics. We got some of that straw strength, OK Bullet, and put it with Shocker to make a really good, highly disease resistant, the diseases we need to be concerned about in Oklahoma, that is, high protein, high test weight, with a yielding ability that's very close to 12-7-16. The one caveat is it won't go as far as 12-7-16. It's pretty much an Oklahoma wheat variety, which is great. That's what we want to target anyway. So now this is one that there doesn't need to be much decision making going on, because I think it's almost a lock. If we can get approval from the Oklahoma Agricultural Experiment Station to move forward, we would like to release this one as a high yielding, high quality variety. Not that any of the others I've already discussed lack in quality, they don't. This one really stands out for its dough strength, and that's what our industry is looking for. A certain level of dough strength that sometimes you can only find in that hard red spring class. We'd like to have some of that dough strength in our hard red winter class.
Okay, this one here.
Lo and behold, we have something even more different. and this is what makes these choices so difficult, is because all these different candidates fit a different need. Like I talked about dough strength with the 13-621, and the 13-209 would be more broad utility, general purpose type. Well, here's one that's just specifically targeted for a certain production system. That production system would be called intensive wheat. In other words, where you pump all the inputs into it, hopefully get better weather than we did this year. But with better weather, more inputs, optimum inputs, not necessarily more, get the yields up. But when you get the yields up, we worry about the straw not taking that high yield. The straw gives in, the wheat lays down. This is a variety, as you can see, is probably not going to lay down. It has a short stature. It's not short because it's stressed. It's short because it's genetically programmed that way.
And one more down here, and Brett, this one looks even a little more different.
Yeah, here's another one that would be used in a different way, different purpose. This is a hard red winter wheat like all the others we've talked about so far. It would be intended for grain production, but look, it lacks the awns or the beards. We call it a beardless variety. So this now enables wheat producers to expand their operations, go for graze out acres, or go for a haying type application. And in addition to a conventional grain only system. So this gives us multi-uses.
And then last but not least, what kind of things are you hearing from growers out here at the field day?
Well, I really haven't heard much yet, but I know that, you know, it's a down year because our crop is down. We just had a bad year in terms of weather, but hey, you know, we'll pop right back up. We have the best growers in the world, and I think we have some of the best genetics in the world to go with it.
Right. Okay, well, keep us posted. We always like to hear what you're doing out here in the field, and of course, share it with Sunup viewers. They always like to hear what's new with wheat development.
Great.
Okay, thanks.
Glad to be here.
Thanks a lot, Brett.
All right.
And many of those wheat varieties that Brett and Lyndall were talking about there at Lahoma will go through the foundation seed system. And we have Jeff right here. Jeff, you take those varieties and make them available to the state.
That's correct. Brett will hand us a few bushels of seed, and then we will plant those out on either research stations or contract growers in their fields. And then this time of year, we're walking those fields and roguing them, making sure they're clean. Now we're through the harvest process, and that's where we're at today, is cleaning the combine in between those varieties.
And it's important to clean those combines, because yesterday you were cutting one variety, this afternoon you're going to cut a totally different variety. But as part of what you do, you have to ensure that it is the variety that you're cutting.
That's correct. My motto this time of year is no seed left behind in that combine, because we want to make sure that if it's IBA that we're going to cut this afternoon, that it's IBA that the farmer's getting. And so we thoroughly clean the combine to make sure that is the case.
You guys have a state-of-the-art facility there in Stillwater, but we're here in Chickasha, and you guys are doing pretty much the same deal here in Chickasha.
Well, our newer combine is fairly easy to clean, and so rather than hauling it 2 hours back to Stillwater, we've just found us a nice shade tree here today, and we can tear it apart and make sure we get it clean here with portable air hose and stuff.
It's kind of like a NASCAR pit crew watching these guys go through it, but you have to make sure that the combine is almost, I don't know, almost as clean as it was the day you got it.
That is correct. And we will, those guys will run the machine, blow it down, and we'll do that several times. And then me or John, one of the full-time guys, will go back and check them, and then show them the little crevices that they either didn't know about or forgot about, and make sure. And then if it's not clean, we'll do it again.
You've been doing this over a decade. Has it got easier?
Well, actually it has. When I started, we had old gleaner combines. They would take us 6 to 8 hours of cleaning time to say we got them clean. And with this machine, we can cut that clean time down to about 3.5 to 4 hours.
Okay, well, Jeff, I'll let you get back to cleaning the combine. And for more information on Foundation Seed, you can go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
Many Oklahoma cattle operations that have spring calving herds like to breed the replacement heifers for a shorter period of time than they do, say, the adult cows. They may put them in the breeding season for 45 to as long as about 60 days. If that breeding season started in mid-April, then the 45 to 60 days is about up. And it's time to think about visiting with our local veterinarian, whoever is experienced at pregnancy checking cattle, and scheduling a time in about 2 months when we can do the pregnancy diagnosis and determine which of those replacement heifers didn't get bred this breeding season. Doing this particular management practice as soon as possible is very, very important, I think, for 3 reasons. First of all, we want to identify which of those replacement heifers went through that growing period and a good sound breeding season but did not get bred. We want to find those and get them out of our herd. Lifetime studies done in Montana way back in the 60s really illustrated this point very well for us. When they followed heifers that went through a breeding season but did not get pregnant, but they kept them in the herd, those cattle only averaged a 55% calf crop the rest of their lifetime. In other words, they're a pretty bad bet to keep around. Also, we want to identify those open heifers now so that we don't go ahead and spend the rest of the summer in terms of them utilizing pasture or winter feed supplies next winter, and the following spring we find out that she didn't get bred, she's open, and we have to sell her as an open 2-year-old. We've spent all of that extra money that was unnecessary, and we still have an animal that did not produce a calf. Plus, if we'll identify those that were open as early as possible, they're still young enough to go to a feedlot, be fed out for a short period of time, and have a chance to grade choice. That means that the price per pound for these long yearlings that weigh 800 to 900 pounds will still be substantially higher than will the price per pound that you'll find for that 2-year-old cow next spring when you try to market her as an open cow at that particular period of time. In fact, she'll probably dollar out higher as the younger animal than she would as the 2-year-old next spring. Plus, we've got all of that winter feed cost in extra expense. So, there's 3 good reasons why I think you want to make sure that you schedule a time with your local veterinarian and get those heifers pregnancy checked in about 60 days after the close of the breeding season. Find out which ones are open so we can get them out of the herd, and we save that extra dollars, keep the ones in our herd that are going to do the best job for us in the future. Hey, we look forward to visiting with you again next week on Sunup's Cow-Calf Corner.
Kim Anderson, our crop marketing specialist, joins us now. Kim, combines rolling here at the variety trials and harvest kind of on the downhill slide across Oklahoma as wheat prices stay well above $5. Give us an idea of what's going on in the market.
Well, over the last week and a half, we've seen a 50-cent increase in the basis, and then, of course, the end of this week, the market knocked about 30 cents off the futures prices, still gained about 20 cents out of that. If you're looking at that Kansas City July contract, it's got support at 520. It went down and tested it. Let's hope it holds there. We'll roll to that September contract relatively soon, and that supports at 536. You'll also note that there's a 17-cent carry there. In other words, step over July. I think the reason we've had these moves on the futures prices is because of Russian crop, dry conditions there. They keep lowering the expectations. The Australians, they're having dry conditions. They had some problems planting some areas. That's impacting the market, and they keep lowering their expectations. And then in the European Union, Germany, Canada, those areas are dry too. So there's some potential losses around the world market. We're watching that, and we got volatility. When you have a record weather market, you got the price movement.
And with all of that in mind, where's the protein premium this year?
Well, the protein premium for most producers, what they'll see is in that basis. Right now, we've got a 20, 25, 30 cent positive basis. That's never happened before. The best basis I've seen in country elevators in Oklahoma has been about even, and we had that a few years. I think that protein premium is in the basis. Some of the terminals or subterminal elevators for 11% pro, they're paying a 10-cent basis. For above 11, a 30-cent positive basis, and then 15 cents for each 0.5% above 11.5. You know, that's a pretty rich basis.
And how long do you think this protein premium will last?
Well, it depends on who you talk to. And talking to the traders, the analysts, they don't think this protein premium is going to last because we're getting in good protein across Oklahoma, Texas. And as we move, if that protein continues up into Kansas, it's not going to last very long. However, if we lose Russia and we lose Australia, then we can maintain a relatively high price even without a protein premium.
A lot to think about. Should producers take advantage of this market?
How can you not sell wheat when they're offering you 25, a basis that is, you know, we went from a minus 20 to a positive 20, a 50-cent basis increase. How can you not sell on that? Or at the minimum, get you a basis contract.
So some enthusiasm at the right time?
I think so.
Okay, Kim, thanks a lot. And speaking of crops, we have some guidance on preventing herbicide damage to ornamentals and food crops. Here is our summer crop weed specialist, Todd Bauman.
This has occurred basically every year since phenoxy herbicides were developed. The primary two of those being 2,4-D or dicamba. Those herbicides, the biggest problem that you have with those herbicides is probably twofold. Number one, essentially any broadleaf plant are sensitive to those herbicides. The other thing that you deal with is there's levels of sensitivity. Tomatoes, okra, grapes are going to be extremely sensitive to those herbicides. Trees and bushes to a lesser degree possibly. Currently we have a lot of herbicides in our local markets that contain these herbicides. In some cases there's probably a chance that the individual applicator doesn't realize what's actually in that Weed B Gon or whatever herbicide Roundup over the top that they're using, and realizing how sensitive some of these plants are to a potential misapplication or drift on that. So the biggest key is knowing what you're putting out, reading the label, and that's not just glancing over it, but actually reading it, understanding what's actually in that, what we're trying to control with those, and making sure that we're using those in a proper manner, and also making sure that we don't get those on some of these sensitive plants. The biggest key is, in regard to this, depending upon how much gets on that individual plant is going to affect how they recover. The best way to manage those symptoms is make sure and keep that plant adequately watered, possibly using a complete fertilizer mix as part of the program, and then making sure and keep those adequately watered. People think they're watering much more than they are, and so making sure, especially with the dry conditions that we've had recently, making sure that those plants have adequate water, keeping them well watered, that will help the recovery as much as anything. Obviously a day like today where the wind's picking up, would be a day, this morning probably would have been a great time to spray, but as the wind picks up, you probably need to stop that. You know, the best approach I think is being a good neighbor. You know, in the agriculture, knowing if a grower has a sensitive crop next to you, knowing if there potentially happens to be a vineyard or something, say a mile down the road. So anything that you can do to be a good neighbor and being well aware of your surroundings can help with these applications as much as anything.
If you're not aware, our Assistant State Veterinarian, Mike Heron, issued a statement a few weeks ago about 2 horses that have been diagnosed with equine herpes myeloencephalopathy. Now, both of these horses participated in a barrel racing event in Oklahoma City. Most horses are exposed to equine herpes virus somewhere before the age of 2. And after that initial exposure, the virus will lay dormant or an inactive state or a latent phase until the horse encounters some type of stressful event, and then the virus is reactivated. Now, equine herpes virus is associated with respiratory problems, reproductive problems. We do see newborn deaths with it, and on rare occasions you get the neurological form of the disease. We get damage to the blood vessels in the brain and the spinal cord, and this results in neurological signs. Now, when we look at treating these horses, the problem is we don't have a drug that treats the herpes virus, so we have to rely on just supportive care, and usually we'll give some anti-inflammatory drugs. Prevention of the disease is difficult because although we have herpes virus vaccines, none of them have a neurological component to the vaccine. Your best defense against this disease is to practice good biosecurity. If you're going to be going to an event where there's lots of horses, try to keep your horses isolated as much as possible. Never share equipment with other horse owners there. Don't let your horse drink out of a water bucket that's shared by other horses. Don't let your horse eat out of a bucket that's been shared by other horses. If you'd like some more information about equine herpes myeloencephalopathy, our state equine specialist, Dr. Chris Heine, and Dr. Elizabeth Geet, who works for the Center for Veterinary Health Science, have put out some very good information about this virus. Just go to sunup@okstate.gov sunup.edu.
Time for the Mesonet Weather Report and a new face on Sunup. We are happy to introduce Wes Lee to the team.
Hello, I'm Wes Lee with your Mesonet Weather Report. Exceptionally high temperatures are having a severe negative impact on our soil moisture reserves. This past May came in as the hottest on record, and June has continued with a similar trend. Fort Cobb gives us a good example of just how hot May and June were this year. The shaded blue area shows the 15-year average daily air temperatures. The red line, showing 2018 average air temperatures at Fort Cobb, was much higher than the long-term averages. Every day in June has been at least 3 degrees higher than the average. These higher temperatures are causing plants to use more water from the soil than they normally would. The recent tall crop evapotranspiration map shows 0.2 of an inch in the eastern half of the state and close to 0.4 in the western counties. If we look at the change in the 10-inch fractional water index, we see the areas of the state where moisture is being depleted at a faster rate. The dark brown areas show a fractional change of up to 0.6, while the green areas show where recent rains were obtained. Here's hoping you get rain out of the next passing cloud on your farm or ranch. Now here's Gary with more on the dry conditions.
Thanks, Wes, and welcome to the Mesonet Weather Team. As a veteran, my number one job remains talking about the latest U.S. Drought Monitor map. Someday we'll be out of drought and I can lead with something else, but right now, let's get right to the map because we still have a significant portion of the state in at least moderate drought. All those red and darker red colors across the northwestern half of the state, those are dwindling a little bit, but we do still need some help in that area. At least Woods and Alfalfa County, we have gotten rid of the severe drought and are now in moderate drought. A little bit of improvement down in the southwest. But look down in the southeast and across the eastern parts of Oklahoma. We do see that drought starting to encroach once again upon that part of the state. So that's another place where we're going to need additional rainfall to stop the possible flash drought that is occurring across the eastern third of Oklahoma. The recent rains have been wonderful, of course, but if we go back to the growing season, we can see why we still have a significant portion of western Oklahoma in drought. The growing season starts on March 1st, and you can see we have a low in Fairview of 3.7 inches, but again, much of the surrounding area has less than 5 inches. And of course, the Panhandle also sits in a very low precipitation total area. If we look at the day 3 through 7 U.S. hazards outlook from the Climate Prediction Center, this is good for 6/16 through 6/20. We do see some good news, and that is the threat of heavy rain across all of Oklahoma, and more importantly, right across that area where the severe drought still exists, across the western third or half of the state. So that would be wonderful news for that drought area if they do get heavy rainfall. Of course, we do need to watch out for flooding in that event. So summer is upon us. We need that rain. We're just about out of the bulk of the rainy season, so every little bit helps before we hit the true heat of summer. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
Finally today, the science of fire. Sunup's Dave Deacon shows us how students in one eastern Oklahoma school district are learning how important fire can be to our ecology.
We're at the first research site, which is the fire ecology research site for teachers, for teaching, and we're studying the ecology of these plots.
As far as I know, these are a one-of-a-kind set of fire research plots on a public school grounds anywhere in the U.S.
It's really awesome that we're able to come out here and learn about this, because if we weren't able to, then we wouldn't have like a real hands-on activity to be able to figure out like what it's really like. Got Johnston grass in everyone except for 20, and then lots of grass.
After the students observed what life resides in these plots, everybody gathered just outside of them and they got to witness an actual prescribed burn.
So they're learning about disturbance and how that is healthy for the system. And whenever we talk to the kids about that, we also discuss biodiversity and the fact that in Oklahoma, we're struggling to maintain a lot of our native biodiversity. We have to have fire in the system to help, keep the woody plants from overtaking our grassy areas and just allowing us to have the diversity that's so amazing in Oklahoma.
The Outdoor Teaching Center here at Jenks has been in the works for several years now, and the students are seeing the benefits of it today.
Let's just go across there and sling, just don't run over each other.
The first burns were in the spring of 2016, which laid the foundation for this hands-on teaching facility. In the summer of 2017, Brian and his partners held a workshop so area teachers could see what an opportunity a few acres of managed grasses could present to their students.
And we talk about biotic and abiotic factors in class, and we'll get to talk about how fire is an abiotic factor and how that affects the wildlife that lives here. One of our long-term goals is to try to get some of the native grasses back in here. I know it's been seeded some. So hopefully over time I'll be able to use this year after year after year and show the students kind of the long-term effects of those burns.
We're just maintaining these plots, keeping them up for them, because again, this is a very important piece of work right here. It's very great that the Jenks Public Schools has allowed this the administration allows these plots to be here.
They could take away that fire isn't always something that is bad, and that it can be something that helps to grow and to return all of this to what it really should be.
Because you can really get like a hands-on feel for what you're learning about, and it's really cool.
In southern Tulsa County, I'm Dave Deacon.
That'll do it for us this week. Remember, you can find us anytime at sunup.okstate.edu and also follow us on YouTube and social media. I'm Lyndall Stout. We wish you the best of luck with harvest, and we'll see you next time at Sunup.